Let me get this where I want it on. There we go. So sitting, and we're going to bring our hands into a mudra. And this mudra has two parts to it. So the very first thing that you'll do is clasp your hands. And then take your index finger, put the pads of the index finger together, put the pads of your thumbs together, and then sort of separate the heel of your hand and pull your thumb back just a little bit. So the first position of the hands and the wrists, we're going to bring the navel, the thumb down to the navel, and the arms can relax. So your index fingers are pointing forward. So this gesture is actually called Uttara Bodhi. And it is connected to our immune system. It actually helps to stimulate immunity. So as you are sitting holding the gesture, just observe if there's any physical sensation that this brings up. Do you notice any emotional tone that this brings up? And we'll try the second hand position. The hands stay in the same shape. We will just move them so that we move the hands away from our body, and then rotate the wrists so that your index fingers point towards the chest and the thumbs are at the bottom of your breastbone. Now, this is not always a comfortable hand position, so be careful that you don't, hunch your back. Try to stay as relaxed about it as you can, and the elbows can drop down. Make sure the thumbs are comfortable. Does this feel different? Not just because we moved our arms, but is there a different feeling, a different energy level to this version? Do you notice any change in your heart rate or in your breath? And if you're not quite sure, you can always go back to the first one and see, does that feel different? So when we think about how our immune systems work, how they should work is that when we are exposed to something or something that creates an immune reaction in the body, the immune system kind of gets ramped up and it does what it needs to do, and then it kind of comes back down so that there's a baseline, right? And then it kind of goes into action and then it comes back down out of action. So the one where you're pointing up, you have a thymus gland that's kind of right behind the kind of mid-sternum. So this actually stimulates that gland to be more effective, and the thymus gland is part of the immune system. And this would be when we're wanting our immune system to go into action. You might notice that it's a little bit more activating, a little bit more energizing. Then when the immune system has done its job, or if you are feeling like you want more of a nurturing sensation, that's when you would want to come down here. And of course you can do them both, just like we did. But could you tell that did this feel more activating? Yeah, for me, it actually makes my heart like beat pretty hard. It doesn't beat fast, it's just I can feel my heart beating. So these mudras really do connect directly into our like internal batteries. So that's our Uttara Bodhi. And let's go ahead now. We can go and lay down. So come back to your place. So today we will need potentially some blankets and pillows, maybe a chair for later. But at first, go ahead and as you come onto your back, remember to support your head. And also remember that if you need to pick your head up to look at your screen, try to have it somewhere where you don't have to pick up your head without support. If you do need to lift your head up to look at something, you can always bring a hand, one or both of your hands behind your head and help you to lift your head up if that's needed. So with the feet on the floor and the knees bent, let's just let the arms relax to the sides. So fatigue, especially when it's cancer-related fatigue, is probably one of the most challenging side effects from treatment to deal with because as you know, it does not go away when you get rest. Sometimes sleeping doesn't actually touch much of the fatigue. So the practice today is going to focus a little bit more on some restorative poses that are back bends to help kind of elevate our energy, also can help to elevate the mood. But before we do any of that, let's just start with some joint movement here. So start with your palms facing the ceiling and make a light fist with your hands. And as you take a breath in, just spread the fingers apart, open up the palm. As you breathe out, make the fist closed, soft fist, and connect the breath and the movement together. So if we link them, my hand doesn't stop moving. It just is continuously opening and closing. And try 2 more of those hand movements. And then let the hand just soften, especially if you've had to spend some time today at a computer or on your cell phone. Just notice what the hand feels like after you stop moving. Something similar now with the toes, with the feet on the floor. As you take a breath in this time, lift just the toes up off the ground. See if you can keep the ball of your foot on the floor and just lift the toes. And then as you exhale, lay the toes back down. Now the toes don't have as far to go as the fingers did, so they might be moving a bit more slowly. And as you breathe in, we're going to lift those toes. Notice what it feels like in the arch of your foot when you do that. And exhaling, relax. And one more time, lift. The arches might feel like they also lift a bit. And exhale and relax the toes. Okay, now moving the front of the foot and the toes together. So as you breathe in, can you lift the balls of your feet off the floor, heels stay down, and exhale. Now notice that this uses different muscles. So the toe, you might have felt that in the front of your foot and in the shin. Now this is mainly going to be ankle and shin. So inhale, lift, exhale, release. One more time. Inhale to lift and exhale to release. And then go ahead and stop moving for a moment. Kind of feel, you can notice that you've done something there on the legs. This time, we'll switch to keeping that part of the foot on the floor and lift the heels up. And let's do one leg at a time for this. So as you breathe in, can one heel lift off the floor? It might be easier to do this if you draw your feet closer to your hips. Exhale, bring it down, and then inhale, the other heel lifts up and slowly send it back to the floor. So alternate maybe 3 more times. No need to contract in a hard way at the top of your range of motion. Just let it float up and let it flow down. observing, do you feel like your pelvis is moving at all as you do this? Does one back pocket seem to drop into the floor more deeply? Or does it seem more level? Just observe. There's no wrong way to experience it. All right, last time. And other side. Good, and then relax the foot. And let's take those feet, noticing, you feel your ankle has done something, your calf muscle has done something. Separate the feet a bit wider so you feel the edges of the mat underneath the soles of your feet. And let's start to let the knees go side to side. So the breath pattern would be inhale to one side, and I'm not trying to go to the floor here, maybe halfway to the floor. Exhale to the center, and then inhale to the other side, and exhale to the center. So I'm just rocking across the soles of the feet. One leg rolls in, one leg rolls out. As I exhale, I'm going to try to use my stomach muscles to bring my pelvis back into the middle, which then brings the legs back into the middle as well. And the other side. And then settle into the middle and notice how your lower back feels, that area around the top of your thigh. So let's take one of those legs, and actually before you pick your leg up, you can bring your feet back toward the sort of body's distance width there. And lift one of the feet up off the floor. Now remember, you can do this in a lot of different ways. If the belly doesn't like pressure, move your leg slightly out to the side. Hold on to your leg somewhere and draw gently towards the chest. So we're trying to flex that hip to a comfortable degree. And then bring the foot back down to the mat, and let's switch over to the other side. So it can go slightly out to the side, or it can be right in front of the shoulder. And then release the foot to the floor. Bring your arms back down to the floor. And then take that first leg that you moved and slide the foot long, and just check to see, how does your knee feel? How does your leg feel? How does your low back feel? Can that leg bounce just a little bit? And can you rotate that leg from the top of the hip, rotate the toes and the knee to face outward, and then rotate it slightly inwards. The inward direction is not nearly as far. The outward direction is pretty far. You can probably get your foot down. But the inward direction, don't try to put your foot all the way to the floor. Just go in a little bit. So we're kind of rotating that thigh in and out. All right, now let that leg just relax to the floor. Likely it will roll out a little bit. And then slide that slide that foot up towards where the other foot is. So the knee is going to be turned out. Pick up the knee and bring the foot back to where it started. So now both knees are bent again and the feet are on the ground. And we'll try those little things on the other side. So we start with the knee coming into the chest or to the side of the chest. We release the foot back to the ground. Then we slide the leg along the floor, relaxing the thigh, just noticing if that's okay on your hip. If it is bothering your hip or your back, if you bend more, it generally does better. And then see about rotating. You might observe that your range of motion is not the same on both sides. Mine definitely is not the same. And try the rotations. It also might feel good to turn the knee toward the ceiling and kind of pump the knee up and down. Really short little movements here. I'm just kind of shaking my leg. And then allow the leg to relax. Turn the knee out again. This time you're going to drag the outside edge of your ankle along the mat. And as you come in, turn the legs so that the feet go back to the floor, the knees face the ceiling. Let's make that last thing we did a few times now on each side. So I'm going to start with my right side. I'm going to slide my leg out. Turn the knee and the toe out. and then drag the ankle up, then let the knee turn, foot to the floor, knee toward the ceiling. So you're just making kind of a circle or an oval. So other side is going to straighten out, rotate it outward, then drag the ankle back up and rotate the leg to center. Now you can also go the other direction if you like. So if you want to try the other direction, right leg rolls out. No need to put the leg all the way to the ground, and then slide the outside of the ankle down and rotate it towards the center as you finish. So now the toe and the knee are facing upward, and then drag the heel under the knee. A little different. Try the other side, rotate the leg outward, slide the leg long, allow it to turn to where the toes face the ceiling, and then drag the heel back under the knee. Let's just do that one more time. We're building towards something, a little larger motion here. So right leg turns out, straighten the leg, let it rotate to neutral, drag the heel back under the knee, left side rotates out. We're just breathing the whole time, straighten the leg, rotate it to neutral, and then drag it up. Okay, keep the knees where they are, feet under the knees. It might feel more comfortable if you just slightly widen your heels out to the sides and just observe how the hips feel. So if you've been sitting a lot today, or like either, I find it's interesting, it's either if you've been sitting a lot or if you've been walking a lot. This actually really helps to kind of get that congestion out of the hips. Okay, let's take our arms and slide them just a little bit further toward the sticky mat. So my pinky fingers are not actually touching the mat, they're just off the mat. And I'm going to take my arms and rotate them palms downward. So thumbs turn towards the inside. Allow the arm to rotate much like the leg did, but we're going to actually not just move the hand, we're going to move the whole arm. So start to rotate the back of the arm to the floor, thumb points upward, keep your arm on the ground, roll the back of the arm, back of the hand to the floor, and then is there any capacity to go at all past that? So can the pinky side of the hand maybe lift up, and I'm not straining anything, my hand stays on the floor, elbow might be a bit straighter. And then come back and do the opposite. So back of the fingers, elbow comes down, rotate the hand, palm down, and you're rotating. This would be rotating inward, the other position rotating outward. So start to go back and forth into these movements, a little more complex, but can we go with our breath? So start with the hands down. As you breathe in, rotate the arms outward. Exhale, rotate the arms and the hands inward. And see if you can really maybe even close your eyes and just allow this to be a meditative motion. So there's not really a specific goal. We're not trying to go farther. We're just moving through those arms. Good. All right, we're going to add one thing to this. Keep the arms going. This is also our brain yoga for today. As you breathe in, can you let your head turn to your right? And as you breathe out, turn the head to the left. The head motion is pretty slow. So once again, you're not going to stop moving at the end of each position. You just kind of go from one to the other. This is a lot of information into our nervous system here. So do maybe 3 more breaths. It's a little bit like patting the head and rubbing the stomach. Some coordination going on here. And when you finish with that 3rd time, your head will be to the left, your palms will be down. Go ahead and breathe in, rotate your hands to the ceiling and just let your head come to the center. And notice if you were holding tension in your arms, can you just let them go? They might need a little bit of a wiggle to let go. All right, bring your arms on the mat. Just each time we stop, we just kind of feel, what did that do? Sometimes we can't really tell what it did, but so long as you're not in any discomfort. clasp your hands together. I'm going to pick up my hands and bring them over my belly, kind of in that same position we were before. And then start to reach both of the hands up toward the ceiling. So I've just got my hands loosely clasped. Shoulder blades are going to stay on the mat, so don't reach so far that your shoulders come off the floor. And then as much as feels comfortable, go a little bit toward the wall behind you. So my hands go from kind of over my face to more over the top of my head or even past the top of my head. Bend your elbows, bring your hands down toward the top of your head, and just notice how that feels for your shoulders. They might feel like they're wide on the floor. Press the feet into the mat. Just a bit, draw your belly in so you don't arch your back too much here, and start to extend through your elbows. Move them through space so they come more over the belly or over the pelvis, and then go back to that first position. So elbows, hands reach toward the wall behind you. The elbows are going to bend, the hands come down to wherever they land. So we're just moving slowly with the breath here. You might inhale and reach toward the wall behind you. You might take a full breath once you're there. When you start exhaling, reach back up toward the ceiling and bring your arms back down toward the belly button. Just kind of hover them. One more time. Inhale, go up, bend, rest, take a breath. Exhale, kind of press your back into the floor and bring the arms back up in front of the body. Okay, from that position now, we're just going to take our hands, palms together, elbows out to the sides, and then move the elbows to the floor. So they're going to be out from your armpits. Turn the palms first to face the direction of your feet. And then, is it comfortable to allow the backs of the hands to come down to the floor? If it isn't, and you have props nearby, you could rest the back of your hand on something, a block or a blanket or a shoe. But do both sides if you need to do both sides. You don't want the hands to just hang. Want them to be connected to something. Now in that, we call this the cactus position. So it's like a saguaro cactus. So notice how your shoulders feel. And is there a pull in the chest? Make sure the neck and the head is staying on your blanket. You might notice that the neck feels a bit stretched in this position. Feel how the chest is being supported by your shoulder blades. And observe how your breath comes in. It might come in a little bit deeper or higher in the torso. We're opening across the front of the chest. Now this isn't too much of a back bend, but this is the direction that we're going to be moving in. So take another breath or two. And then as you are ready to move the arms back down, I'm just going to slide my arms. They stay palms up, slide them down to a lower position and stop and just feel again. Okay, before we get into a back bend, let's turn over to the side. And what I like to do, and I have a really thin carpet where I am, even though I do have a sticky mat, is if I go ahead and roll to the side, take a breath or two before you sit up, push yourself up. I know that for my body, the outside of my hip hurts if I have it on the floor for too long. So I'm just going to take one of my blankets, unfold it so that it is underneath my torso, hip to shoulder. So kind of like that, it just gives me some extra padding. And then I can use another support for my head. So blocks aren't great for head supports. They're kind of hard and kind of tall, but pillows are great. So you grab a pillow perhaps, bring it under your head. And the arm that you're lying on, allow that arm to reach forward. Make sure that you're okay on your shoulder here. If this does not feel right to you, if you don't like lying on your side for whatever reason, you could do this next thing sitting in a chair, because I'm kind of like in a chair position already. My knees are bent, my hips are flexed. So if you prefer, slowly get up and sit. The arm that's free, that one is going to start to move. So start with a backward circle. You're going to keep your hand on your hip. So at first, we're not going to try to lift the weight of our arm up. but just get some range of motion happening here in the shoulder. When that feels like you want to do more, you can stop at any level that you like. But if you feel like you could do a little more, touch your shoulder and let the elbow guide you. So elbow comes parallel to the floor toward the nose and then go toward the ceiling and toward the hip. We don't want to go way back behind us. So just kind of keep it nice and easy here. Move the shoulder, move the arm. If that still feels pretty good and you want to try your whole arm, keep your arm bent slightly, it will be lighter. So a little soft elbow, parallel to the floor. Again, kind of come to where it's just in front of your eye line, and then reach the arm up toward the ceiling and let it come all the way back down to your thigh. And just let it rest for a moment. And then we'll go parallel to the floor again, over the ear. And then elbow guides, hand follows up and then back to the thigh and stop and do one more. This time we're going to stay up there at the top. So let that arm come forward and up. From here, you've got a couple choices. If this is not a comfortable position, if you move your pillow a little in front of your face, you could rest your forearm on your pillow. If you feel like the arm could stay over the ear, you might be able to touch the floor with your fingertips here. You can also lay your arm on your head, although for me that knocks my glasses off, so I'm not going to do that part. And I'm just going to kind of feel my shoulder opening through the armpit area. I'm not trying to like reach as far as I can. I want to try to keep the arm connected into the socket. And let this top knee, can we clamshell that knee open? So touch the soles of the feet together, or actually touch the top sole to the bottom inside edge of the foot, and lift that knee up, and you're going to allow your body to very slightly start to open toward the back. Not all the way on your back, but just maybe a quarter of the way or halfway. And then allow your body to come back to your side. So close the knee, look toward the screen, maybe even let the forearm come down in front of you so you kind of close that position. And then try that again. So allow that knee to lift, let the whole body move together. So the knee lifts, the body starts to rotate just a little bit toward the ceiling. You reach into that arm and then coming back to the side. We'll do that one more time. So what this is doing is it's just preparing the rib cage and the lower back to do a bigger supported heart opener. Alrighty, and then back to the side and let the arm rest for a moment. Just notice where you feel any change around your shoulder, around your ribs. Now I'm going to sit up and turn the other way. You could definitely just roll over if you'd like. So if you're going to roll over, move your body toward the direction that you're facing. So you almost come to the edge of your sticky mat, bring your pillow with you, and then carefully just roll yourself onto your back and then roll yourself onto your other side. I'm going to actually sit up though and turn the other way so I don't end up not facing you. Okay, so we're going to lay on the side. Make sure that if you're using that extra padding that it's where you need it. If you're sitting in your chair, we're just going to go to the other shoulder. And let's relax the hand to the thigh and we'll start to do the shoulder first. So we want that shoulder blade to slide. And it slides all along the back of the body. And then when you're ready to move on, you can touch the shoulder and go forward and toward the ceiling and toward the thigh, toward the waist, forward, toward the ceiling, and maybe one more. Notice if your shoulder is different, especially if the upper arm is your dominant arm. Then extend your elbow again. And with a softly bent elbow, try not to lock your arm out. We'll come forward. The fingers can even drag along the floor if necessary, toward the eye line. And then elbow is going to lead, hand is going to follow all the way down to your side. And then again, you can touch the floor if you need to, or hover toward the ear. toward the ceiling, toward the body. One more, and we'll stay at the top. Forward and to the ear. And then again, where does the shoulder want to go? Does it need to be forward of your face? Does it need to be on the side? Kind of decide. I like it if you can get your fingertips to something. That also is nice because then you've got some part of the weight of your arm resting. Let's take that top knee, let's step on the inside of your bottom leg and start to rotate the torso slightly toward the back. Make sure you don't lose your pillow. And then bring yourself back to your side. Let the elbow come forward, let the knee come forward. And try that again. So I'm rotating upward, opening, keeping my head totally supported. And then back. And rest. And we'll do one more. Open. Let the shoulder and the hip go together. And back to the side and pause for a couple breaths. Just feeling all those areas that you actually were moving. Okay, now everybody together, we're going to sit up. So let that top hand come a little lower towards in front of your chest. You can take that top leg and stretch it out and slowly push yourself up. Try not to pop up with your head first. And kind of drag yourself up and just observe any dizziness when you sit up. Very common, so just give yourself a second to not be dizzy. And then let's kind of get our stuff situated here. So I've got a blanket and I've got a pillow. You're going to need two separate props for this next piece. One will be a pillow for your head and one is going to go under your shoulder blades. So I've got a blanket here that's folded in half twice. I think twice, and it's a big rectangle, and I'm going to fold it again in half so that it's a skinnier, thicker rectangle. I'm going to roll my pillow toward the back of the mat. I'm going to lay my blanket, not touching the pillow, but just a few inches from it. Now, before you lay down and probably can't see anymore, I want to show you where this ends up. And what you can do if it feels like it's too much. So now I've got this double thickness here. I'm going to turn around so that right at the chest height, you want your shoulder blades to be a little bit on top of this, and this part of your upper back to actually be in this channel between the two props with your head here. So as you lay yourself back, slow down. And what I like to do is once I get my head just barely touching it, if you kind of lift your hips up and shift your body towards your head, the arms can come through that little space. Now remember, if the hands float, you could put something under your hands, or you could also try not having your hands out to the sides. It can be on your body too. So you don't want the blanket in your lower back, and you don't want it like at the top of the shoulders. It's kind of in the middle of the torso. For most of us, if we keep our knees bent, this will be more comfortable for the lower part of the back. So you can try that. If you prefer to straighten your legs and it doesn't bother your back, you certainly can take your legs long. If you happen to have 3 pillows, you can put something under the backs of your knees. But noticing if you do straighten your legs, that's a lot bigger stretch. You don't want it to hurt, so if that doesn't feel right, bend them again. Take your feet a bit wider than your body and allow the knees to roll towards the center, and then you should stay there like that. So the mechanics of what we've got going on here is that the blanket is supporting the under part of the shoulder blade, and it's going to lift the lungs and lift the chest. If you can rest with your palms facing the ceiling and your hands down on something, that works well. If you need to touch your body, let your palms be on your body. So check yourself out. Where do things feel comfortable? And where might things need a bit of adjusting? Is your pillow in the right place? Is your lower back able to relax? Can you unclench your jaw? And start to observe yourself breathing. So while you stay where you are, I'm just going to roll over and sit up so that I can talk a little more easily. So all restorative poses, and in fact, all poses in general, they think about the breath like it's a fluid, right? It moves and it follows the path of least resistance in our bodies. So when we create these shapes, this one, it's going to direct the breath more into the top of the chest. So as you take some breaths in, can you feel where does your breath flow in this position? Does it feel like it comes into the upper abdominal area? Because that also is being opened by the back bend. Does anything come up into the chest at all? Do you feel a gentle rise when you breathe in and a gentle release as you breathe out? If there's any discomfort and fidgeting a little bit doesn't take care of it, then you could roll over and unfold part of your blanket so that it is not quite as thick, and then come back down and see if that feels any better. You never want to be in a restorative position and be in pain. So why do back bends make us feel less fatigue? Well, back bends help to encourage your breath in. Last week, remember, we talked a lot about taking long, slow exhales because that helps to kind of calm down the nervous system. Well, it's not that we're trying to like amp up the nervous system, but we're trying to create energy. We're trying to create some sensation of having a little bit more energy to work with here. And as you're breathing in, you can just imagine that that breath that you're breathing in is, you know, it's our life force. It's bringing with it not just oxygen, but energy that we can use. Now, every single breath doesn't have to be this big, grandiose inhalation. You want it to stay relaxed and make sure that you're still breathing out to a comfortable amount. But feel like the chest is relaxed and open so that the inhalation can just start to fill the whole torso. And then the exhales are nice and soft. Now you are welcome to stay where you are if you're comfortable, if things feel good still. If you're kind of starting to fidget more and you decide that you want to move, you can make sure your knees are bent first and then just roll to a side. Take your time and then push yourself back up to seated, and we'll shift into one more pose. Either stay in the back bend or we're going to do a different kind of back bend. But will also allow the legs to be elevated. So We've done this a couple of times. You still have your folded blanket like you had it before. It's folded in this long rectangular shape. And if you have a coffee table or a chair, that's handy. Now I have this weird yoga chair, which means that mine's going to go backwards, but yours is going to go seat toward where you're lying. And the reason mine needs to go backwards is because the seat of my chair is taller than the back. And I really want my feet to be the highest point by just like whatever that distance is. It's maybe an inch, it's not very much. So if you're going to use a chair where the seat is really deep and low, you might want to grab something, a little cushion to put at the back, or you could lay a pillow across the seat and roll up just a tiny bit of the end of the blanket back here, so it kind of sticks up a little higher. Something like that. Now you can do a little bit of back bend and this pose if you'd like to, but you always want to get in this position first before you add props. Very hard to try to mount the prop and get yourself in the right position. So I'm going to scoot closer to my chair, and I'm going to sit kind of to the edge and lay down on the mat if you still are on your mat, and then roll over. So just kind of get on your side and then come onto your back. I still need to adjust my hips. It works best if the back of the knee can actually touch the end of the chair so that your whole lower leg can be supported. And start out with just this position. So see, does this feel like it's enough? Particularly in your lower back. If you feel like you want the pelvis slightly elevated, you've got your blanket. I'm going to bring my feet on the edge of the chair and very slowly lift just enough so I can slide the blanket right underneath my hips. It's fairly low still, and it's going to go from the back of the waist under the whole pelvis. And then you can reach the legs back forward. And check again. Be honest with yourself. That does not feel good. There's no reason to stay up on the blanket. Sometimes the blanket will allow the pelvis to be in a more comfortable position, and sometimes it's too much. So notice if you did change poses, how does this new torso position affect how you breathe? Where does your breath seem to go? Or if you had to like touch on your front body, the part of your torso where you feel the breath really moving, expanding to breathe in and releasing to breathe out, where would that be? Now, even though we breathe all the time, thank goodness we don't have to think about our breath. But when we do think about it, we can actually create some really interesting effects. So if you could put one of your hands, move it to your lower abdominal area, somewhere below your waistband. To the side is fine. And put the other one right above the waistband on the other side of your rib cage. So one's on the belly, the other one's on the lower rib cage. And just make sure your shoulders and your elbows are okay with that position. So as you breathe in, just notice what happens. Do they both move? Lower and upper abdominal area. We're going to assume that if we had 4 hands, we could touch all 4 corners. We're going to assume the top and the bottom are doing the same thing. Does one hand move faster or more than the other side? Can you take the hand that's on the upper abdominal area and move it up to the same side of the chest? So you can just touch somewhere below your collarbone. Does anything happen this high up? Can you visualize that your breath, being the fluid that it is, comes through the nostrils, and it actually is like if you had a glass that you were pouring water into. It starts by filling up the bottom of the glass and moves up toward the top of the glass. So our torso is the glass, the breath is the water, and as we breathe in through the nose, the breath goes all the way to the bottom of the glass, down into the belly, and starts to fill up toward the chest. Now, sometimes the breath goes halfway up and it stops at the ribs and goes back down. So the exhale, we just imagine that the breath goes back out. But sometimes we can encourage the breath to keep going higher towards the hand on the top of the chest. And if this ever creates a feeling of breathlessness or irritation, that typically means that you've gone a little too far, too fast. So just go back to normal breath for a few rounds before trying again. So we work toward allowing the breath to come higher into the chest. And as we emphasize the inhalation more, which can be done in these back bends or in other poses, the impact is that it helps to build some energy, almost like you're recharging your internal battery. So try 3 more of those directed breaths. And then allow the hands to move to another comfortable position, perhaps palms up, arms by the sides, a little bit away from the mat. Kind of check in again with how your lower back feels. Do you notice any change because of that breath pattern? So remember what we did in the beginning of the class with our little arm rotations. We're going to add to that now with the legs. So my legs are up on the seat. My outside of my shin is kind of stopped because I've got a bar. If you don't have a bar, just be careful that you don't roll your legs off the chair. So if you can take your legs and turn the toes, turn the feet so that the knees come more toward the center and the toes touch, maybe the big toes actually touch each other. And then allow the knees to roll out and the toes to roll out. So we're moving from the top of the thigh. And the pattern here is going to be inhale, rotate the legs toward the center line. Exhale, rotate the knees and toes outward. They don't move that much. And again, you're going to try to keep moving. Go slow enough that you don't actually stop, except for just to change direction. Make sure this is okay on the back of your pelvis. All right, now let that relax for a moment. We're going to go back to the arms. Bring your arms down so they're just a bit off the sticky mat, and pick up your hands and flip your palms down. So thumbs toward the mat, pinkies toward the outside. Remember the pattern we had with the arms. Rotate from the upper arm, palms up, and then maybe even turn the palms toward the wall where your head is facing as you breathe in. As you breathe out, rotate the back of the hand to the floor and then the palm to the floor. So inhale, rotate the arms outward. Exhale, rotate the arms inward, palms to the floor. Keep going. We're going to see if we can do both at the same time. Now they do opposite movements. So the knees are relaxed outward. The next time you breathe in, keep your arms going and draw the knees inward. Knees in, arms out. Exhale, knees out, arms in. So we're just rotating those limbs in the socket. We're not actually picking them up or moving them all that much. So getting into this little opposite pattern. And if you want to add the head, as you take a breath in, the head is going to turn slightly to the right. So wait for your inhale. Right head to the right. Exhale, everything else, head to the left. If this gets confusing, just do two things of your choice, whichever two you like best. Now, what's interesting about our motor cortex is that once we get it going, it kind of don't have to think so much about it anymore. So that would be the only goal, to try to get to a place where this becomes something that once you start it, it's kind of like a perpetual motion machine. It just is going to keep going so long as we don't get too distracted. So try 3 or 4 more. The breath gets to guide everything. So that's what you're following. And then when you are on this last breath here, when you exhale, let the legs stay there. As you breathe in, just let your hands turn to center and your head come to center. And feel what happens. You might feel a little bit tingly. We just really communicated with our nervous system in a very, very deep way, both from the brain to the body and also the body to the brain. So as you're ready, if your legs are all still up on that seat, go ahead and bring your feet to the front edge. And you still have your blanket under your back, and that's fine. You can let the knees come a little bit closer in. Of course, if you need to widen your knees to not press on the abdomen, do that. Now you could roll over without taking the blanket out from under your back if you'd like to. But if you feel like you want to move it, step your feet back on the chair, lift your hips up and move that out of the way. Otherwise, move one of your arms out of the way and roll over, catch your head as you come to the side. We're going to kind of roll off the blanket so your hip can slide to the floor, and stay on the side for just a couple moments. And then slowly press yourself back up to seated. And just as you come up, it's always a really good opportunity to check in and see, what do you feel like when you come back up from that deeper work? So just kind of sit and roll your shoulders around. So observing how you feel, observing your energy level too. Very different sensation from focusing on the inhalation and the back bends than what we did last week. It's pretty much the polar opposite of then we were focusing on exhalations and doing forward bends. So they have a very different energetic impact. And hopefully this can help you feel a bit more awake for the rest of your day. Reviewing the mudras, it's the clasped hand and the thumb and the index finger touch. So that, I don't know if you can see that very well. To stimulate the energy, we do index finger. It's really measure it from where your thumb ends up at the bottom of the sternum, and then your index finger just ends up where it ends up. And this is to stimulate that thymus gland to lift the energy. The other one is more of a self-nurturing, nourishing, and fingers at the belly button. Thumb is at the belly button, and then the hand is down. But both of them relate to the immune system. All right, let's bring our palms flat together and just take a second to remember your intention. Remember your intention from last week. And this might be the only time you've thought of it since class last week. So remind yourself again that this is a tool that you could use. You say it to yourself 3 times silently. And the next time that you get caught in a, troublesome thought pattern, that you can pull up that intention and just say that to yourself instead of the troublesome thought pattern. It works actually very, very well. All right, thank you everybody. Nice to see you. Namaste. Come back up here.